Welcome to Books and More, a channel where meaningful books become personal transformations. Here, we don't just summarize ideas, we experience them. In today's video, we explore Raising Our Children, Raising Ourselves by Naomi Aldort, a groundbreaking parenting book that shifts the focus from controlling children to transforming ourselves. Aldort reveals that children don't need perfection, they need presence. Through connection, emotional safety, and unconditional love, our children guide us to heal, grow, and become the parents we were meant to be. If you're ready to change the way you understand parenting, this book will change you. Preparation: The Shift in Mindset. I begin with a simple truth. Parenting is not about learning techniques to control or fix our children. It is a journey of growing up ourselves. Every child enters this world whole and complete, carrying a unique seed of personality, potential, and purpose. They do not need to be shaped into a better version according to adult expectations. What they need is unconditional love, trust, and an emotionally safe space to be who they truly are. I came to this realization not through theory, but through countless moments filled with tears, theirs and mine. I noticed that whenever a child behaved in a way parents considered difficult, the reaction often came not from wisdom, but from old wounds inside the parent. We think we are reacting to the child, but we are reacting to our past. Many parents come to me asking, how do I make my child listen? Yet hidden beneath that question is a deeper longing. How do I become the parent I want to be? Because if we are honest, what we truly want is not obedience, but connection. Not a compliant child, but a relationship built on trust, mutual respect, and love. For generations, parents believed that children must be controlled to become good people. That belief created an entire toolbox: rewards, punishment, praise, emotional pressure, clever persuasion, all different forms of control. We call it discipline, but in reality, we are molding them into who we want them to be, instead of helping them grow into who they already are. A child who is controlled learns to obey. A child who is seen learns to lead. Children do not need to earn love. They need to feel loved. When we use love as a form of reward, children begin to behave not from authenticity, but from fear of losing connection. A child learns to silence their anger to avoid disapproval. They become the pleaser, the achiever, the good child, but inside they slowly disconnect from their inner compass. True transformation begins when we look inward. Before reacting, we pause and ask, am I responding to my child or to my own past? When we separate ourselves from emotional triggers, we can finally see our child clearly. The child is not giving us a hard time. The child is having a hard time. And in that moment, what heals is not judgment or teaching, but presence. We don't have to fix the child. We only need to stay with them. When we let go of control, something beautiful happens. The child naturally cooperates. When children feel heard, they listen. When children feel safe, they grow. When children feel loved without condition, they reveal their true selves. Parenting is not a 20-year project of shaping a child. It is a lifelong journey of learning to see the person growing right in front of us and growing alongside them. We raise our children, and at the same time, our children raise us. Chapter 1: Communication that Heals and Connects. Communication with children is not about persuading, correcting, or teaching them to behave. It is about connection. When a child is overwhelmed by emotion, they don't need logic. They need presence. They need to know we are there. Yet, as parents, we are often pulled by our urge to fix the situation. The moment the child cries, we rush to stop the tears. When they are angry, we try to explain why they shouldn't feel that way. We distract, we reason, we scold. But behind every emotional outburst, there was a simple message from the child: please see me. Children don't cry to make life harder for us. They cry because feelings are bigger than their capacity to hold them. When we try to eliminate those feelings by telling them to stop crying or calm down, we accidentally send the message that their emotions are wrong. A child who hears "stop crying, it's not a big deal" doesn't learn to regulate emotion. Instead, the child learns to hide emotion, and every hidden emotion becomes a behavior we don't understand later. Healing communication begins when we stop trying to fix the feeling and start listening to it. In this chapter, I introduce the SALV process, a way of communicating that prioritizes connection over control. First, we separate ourselves from the emotional trigger. Instead of reacting from old wounds, our fear, our anxiety, our impatience, we pause and breathe. Then, we shift attention to the child, not the behavior. We listen without interrupting, without preparing a response. We validate by naming what we see. You're angry because you really wanted that. And finally, we empower the child by trusting that once the emotion is honored, the child will find their own solution. The goal is not to stop the crying. The goal is for the child to feel safe enough to cry until the emotion releases. Once, I worked with a little girl sobbing in a grocery store because she feared missing her favorite show. Her mother was exhausted and embarrassed. Instead of persuading the child or telling her it was not important, I kneeled and said, "You waited all day for that show, and now you're scared you won't make it in time." She cried harder, but that cry was different. It was a release. Within moments, she relaxed into calm. I didn't fix anything. I simply saw her. Children don't calm down because we end their feeling. They calm down because we join them in it. When we validate, we are not agreeing with the behavior. We are acknowledging the emotion underneath. Validation is not approval. It is understanding. And children who feel understood become cooperative not because we demand it, but because connection makes cooperation natural. Communication becomes manipulation the moment it is used with the goal of obtaining obedience. Even praise can be subtle control when it implies, "I like you when you behave the way I want." True connection is present when we listen without expecting anything to change. Sometimes the most healing words are silence, a hand resting gently on a shaking back, a quiet presence beside the storm. When a child senses that their feelings are safe with us, their nervous system relaxes. They cry less, not because they are forced to, but because they feel supported. A child who is listened to learns to listen to themselves. A child who is seen learns to see others. A child who is validated learns emotional intelligence. Communication that heals is not about shaping the child. It is about freeing the child. And in learning to be present with their emotions, we rediscover a part of ourselves that never stopped longing to be seen. Chapter 2. Love. Love is the most powerful force in parenting, yet it is also the most misunderstood. We often believe we are loving our children unconditionally, but without realizing it, we tie our affection to their behavior. When they are cooperative, we praise. When they are emotional or resistant, we withdraw connection, sigh, look disappointed, or become cold. To the child, this does not feel like love. It feels like a transaction. I am loved when I behave the way you want. In this chapter, I explore the essence of unconditional love. Love not as a reward, not as approval, but as presence. Children experience love through connection, not evaluation. Love is not felt when we praise them for being good, but when we see them, hear them, and embrace them as they are. Praise often sounds like love, yet it carries a hidden message. I approve of you when you meet my expectations. Love says you are worthy just because you exist. Unconditional love is not expressed through compliments, achievements, or well-behaved moments. It is expressed in the messy moments, when the child cries, pushes back, acts out, or feels lost. If our love disappears when the child struggles, then the child learns to hide their struggles to preserve the connection. I have seen parents who, with the best intentions, rely on praise as a tool to motivate. At first, children seem energized and cooperative, but over time, the child becomes addicted to external approval. They interpret every achievement through the eyes of others. Was it good enough? Do you still love me when I fail? Praise conditions love. Presence communicates love. A child who grows up on praise becomes skilled at pleasing. A child who grows up in unconditional love becomes skilled at being. Love is not something we give only when we have time or patience. It is not reserved for peaceful moments when everything is harmonious. Love is the breath we offer when the house is chaotic, when the cereal spills, when the child refuses the shoes, when tears soak the pillow. Children do not need us to fix them. They need us to stay. To love unconditionally, we must separate our needs from theirs. Many times, when a parent says, "I just want what's best for you," what they truly mean is, "I want what will make me feel safe, proud, or validated." We project our fears onto the child: fear of imperfection, fear of judgment, fear of losing control. But children are not responsible for calming our fears. When we attach our emotional state to their behavior, we make the child responsible for our happiness. They learn that they must manage our moods, soothe our stress, and perform to protect our love. A child who grows up compensating for an adult's emotions becomes an adult who struggles to identify their own needs. Unconditional love means we stand firm in our own emotional world, so they are free to explore theirs. There will be moments when the child resists, when they protest, when they say things like, "I hate you." These words are not a rejection of our love. They are a plea for safety. Are my hard feelings still welcome here? When we respond with calm presence rather than wounded pride, the child learns the most powerful lesson of emotional safety. My relationship with you is stronger than my feelings. Love is not doing everything for the child. Love is trusting the child can do things for themselves. Love is not rescuing them from frustration. Love is letting them struggle and discover their strength. Love is not keeping them happy. Love is letting them feel. The foundation of unconditional love is trust. Trust in the child's inner wisdom. When we believe that children are whole, capable, and intrinsically good, we stop trying to control them and begin to guide them. Children who are trusted learn to trust themselves. Children who are treasured without conditions learn self-worth that does not depend on approval. To offer unconditional love, we must look inward. We must recognize the parts of us that still seek approval, that fear disconnection, that depend on control. Our children do not need us to be perfect. They need us to be present. They need us to love them without turning love into a test. The real measure of our love is not how we feel about our children, but how our children feel about themselves in our presence. When a child knows, "I don't have to earn love. I am safe to feel. I am free to be myself," then love becomes not a reward, but a foundation. That is unconditional love. Chapter 3: Emotional Expression. Children are born knowing how to process emotions. They cry, rage, collapse into tears, and then, almost magically, return to peace. Emotion rises, is expressed, and passes. It is simple, natural, and healthy. Yet very early in life, adults interrupt this process. We tell children to stop crying, to calm down, to be reasonable. We distract them from their feelings or lecture them about why they shouldn't be upset. Gradually, the child learns to suppress emotion rather than experience it. In this chapter, I explore what truly happens when a child's emotions erupt and how our response either frees the child or traps them. When a child expresses strong feelings, it often triggers something inside us. Their tears activate our discomfort. Their frustration stirs up our impatience. Their anger awakens the unresolved emotions from our own childhood, times when we were silenced, dismissed, or punished for expressing feelings. The child's intensity touches our wounds, and because we don't know what to do with our own emotions, we rush to control theirs. But emotions are not meant to be controlled. Emotions are meant to be felt. A tantrum is not misbehavior. It is an emotional overload. Children don't cry to get their way. They cry because their nervous system is overwhelmed. What they need is not correction, but connection. When we immediately react, telling them to stop, warning them about consequences, insisting they explain themselves, we interrupt their natural process of emotional release. When we interrupt enough times, the child learns. My feelings are not welcome. That is the moment emotional suppression begins. Crying, anger, frustration, these are not signs of weakness. They are signs of aliveness. Emotion is not the problem. The problem is that we treat emotion as a threat. A child cries and we fear we are losing control. A child gets angry and we fear disrespect. A child expresses resistance and we fear we are failing as parents. But these fears belong to us, not to the child. Our work is not to silence the emotion. Our work is to be the safe place through which the emotion can move. A child becomes peaceful when they are free to feel. The most profound healing happens when we don't resist the emotion, when we simply stay present with it. Instead of thinking, how do I stop this? We shift to, how can I be with my child through this? Presence, not logic, not lectures, is what regulates a child's nervous system. When emotions erupt, the child enters a storm. And like every storm, it passes fastest when no one tries to push it away. But we often mistake emotional release for manipulation. Parents will say, she cries just to get what she wants. In reality, a child cries to be seen. The moment we treat crying as a tool they use against us, we turn emotional connection into a power struggle. The key is to stop focusing on the behavior and start listening to the feeling beneath it. When a child screams because they can't have something, we tend to explain why they can't. But logic does not comfort emotion. Emotion needs acknowledgement. A simple sentence, "You're disappointed because you wanted that so much," speaks directly to the child's heart. The moment the feeling is seen, the nervous system begins to relax. Expression leads to release. Suppression leads to more outbursts. Children go through emotional storms so they can reach emotional clarity. The more we allow the feeling to flow, the faster the storm passes. Emotional expression also teaches integrity. When children are allowed to express anger, jealousy, sadness, or frustration, they learn that emotions can be felt without shame. But when we punish emotion or insist on good behavior, we teach children to perform. They become the good kid, the pleaser, the peacekeeper. A child who learns to suppress emotion becomes an adult who doesn't know what they feel. A powerful shift happens when we stop trying to manage the child and start managing our own reactions. When we breathe, when we stay grounded, when we allow the child to feel without trying to fix, we become the emotional anchor. The child learns not only that emotions are safe, but that they are safe. Our calm nervous system teaches their nervous system how to regulate. Sometimes boys are told, "Don't cry, be strong." Sometimes girls are told, "Don't be angry, be nice." Both messages disconnect the child from their emotional truth. Emotional repression is not strength. Emotional honesty is. A child who learns that all feelings are allowed becomes an adult who is whole. We don't need perfect words. We don't need to fix anything. We only need to offer presence. I'm here. It's okay to feel. You are safe. When emotion is allowed to complete its cycle, something remarkable happens. The child emerges lighter, more cooperative, more connected. And in that moment, we witness the truth. Healing does not come from stopping emotion. Healing comes from allowing emotion. And when we allow our children to feel, something else happens. We begin to heal the parts of ourselves that were once silenced too. Chapter 4: Emotional Safety. Emotional safety is the invisible foundation of every healthy relationship between parent and child. A child can only grow into their true self when they feel safe. Safe to feel, safe to speak, safe to make mistakes, safe to express the parts of themselves that are messy, loud, or uncomfortable. Without emotional safety, a child may obey, but they do not thrive. In this chapter, I explore how our reactions to a child's emotions shape not just their behavior, but their sense of self. Children are not afraid of their emotions until we teach them to be. A child is naturally honest. When they feel angry, they show it. When they feel sad, they cry. When they feel overwhelmed, their body shakes, their voice raises, and emotion pours out. There is no shame or hesitation. But soon, they learn from the adults around them whether emotion is safe or dangerous. If we respond to emotion with irritation, withdrawal, threats, or punishment, the child absorbs one message: I must hide parts of myself to receive love. When a child senses that emotional expression leads to disapproval or distance, they do not stop feeling, they stop showing. Feelings turn inward. They become fear, anxiety, lying, or compliance. And the cost of losing emotional safety shows up later, in adulthood, in the inability to set boundaries, to say no, to speak truth, or to feel worthy. Emotional safety begins with one commitment. My connection with you is more important than my control of you. A child who feels emotionally safe is not a child with big feelings. They are a child who knows they do not have to go through those feelings alone. Many parents fear that allowing emotional expression means children will become wild or spoiled. Yet the opposite is true. A child acts out only when they feel unsafe. When emotion is allowed to be felt fully, without correction, without judgment, the nervous system calms and cooperation naturally returns. The more a child is forced to control their emotions, the more control they seek through behavior. I once worked with a child who would scream and throw things whenever frustrated. His parents were convinced he was aggressive and difficult. But when I sat with him and acknowledged what he was feeling without trying to stop him, his screaming softened into tears. The aggression dissolved because he no longer needed it to protect himself. The moment we stop trying to control emotion, emotion stops controlling behavior. When a child feels safe, they become honest. They tell us when they are scared, jealous, or hurt. When emotional safety is missing, they tell us what we want to hear. They hide to protect the relationship. This is why children lie, not because they are dishonest, but because they are afraid of losing love. A lie is not a character flaw. A lie is a survival strategy. When parents punish a child for telling the child learns that the truth is dangerous. When parents respond to honesty with understanding, the child learns that honesty is safe. Emotional safety turns truth into a habit. Children also need safety to feel darker emotions, such as anger or hatred. When a child shouts, "I hate you," it is not rejection. It is emotional overflow. They are really saying, "I am hurting, and I need to know if your love can hold this." If we respond with offense or punishment, the child learns to bury parts of themselves. But if we respond with calm presence, "You're angry, I'm here," the emotion passes and love remains intact. Emotional safety does not mean we abandon boundaries. It means we set boundaries without abandoning the relationship. We can say, "I won't let you hit," while also saying, "You are allowed to feel angry." The difference between control and emotional safety is this. Control says, "Stop feeling that way." Safety says, "Feel what you feel, and I will stay with you." To give emotional safety, we must also examine ourselves. When a child's emotion overwhelms us, what rises in us is often our own childhood pain. The moments when we were not allowed to feel, when our own parents could not handle our emotions. Our children are not triggering us. They are revealing the parts of us that still need healing. A child becomes emotionally secure when they learn that no matter what emotion appears, rage, fear, jealousy, frustration, it is met with presence instead of rejection. When a child knows, I can feel anything and still be loved, they grow into an adult who says, I can be myself and still belong. Emotional safety creates resilience. Emotional safety creates integrity. Emotional safety creates a human being who knows their worth. And the only way a child learns emotional safety is when someone, one person, is willing to stay through the storm. Chapter 5. Autonomy and Inner Power. Children are born with an inner drive to lead their own lives. They explore, try, fail, experiment, and learn through doing. Autonomy is not something we give to children, it is something they already possess. Our task is not to control their power, but to protect it. In this chapter, I learned that the more we try to command our children, the more they resist. When we step back and trust them, they rise into responsibility and self-leadership. A child's desire for autonomy is not defiance, it is a declaration of self. Yet adults often misunderstand this. When a child says, I'll do it myself, we rush to correct, guide, or hurry them. When they resist instructions, we label it as disobedience. But what we are actually witnessing is the child fighting to keep ownership of their life. Underneath the behavior is a simple message, let me be me. When children feel powerless, they fight for control. When children are trusted, they no longer need to fight. One of the biggest revelations for me was recognizing how much misbehavior is actually a child defending their sense of autonomy. A child who hits, grabs, or shouts is not trying to dominate others. They are trying to reclaim a power that they feel has been taken away. When we respond by overpowering them even more, the child must escalate the struggle. But when we listen and acknowledge their need for power, the storm softens. Connection restores balance. True leadership as a parent is not control, it is presence. Children cooperate naturally when they feel seen, heard, and respected. Forced cooperation only produces compliance or rebellion. Both disconnect the child from their inner voice. A compliant child obeys to avoid conflict, suppressing their needs to stay safe. A rebellious child fights to keep their inner power alive. Neither of these outcomes leads to authenticity. Autonomy builds authenticity. I often tell parents, if your child pushes back, celebrate. That pushback is proof that their spirit is intact. Physical play, wrestling, running, climbing, being wild with their bodies, is one of the purest ways children explore autonomy. When children roughhouse, they are not trying to hurt anyone. They are trying to experience their power safely. Physical play allows them to feel strong, capable, and in control of their body. In these moments, the child is learning boundaries, self-regulation, and empowerment. But this only works when the parent plays as a partner, not a superior. If the parent dominates, wrestling to win, proving strength, the child shifts into defense and aggression. But if the parent simply joins without agenda, the game becomes connection. Power without connection becomes aggression. Power with connection becomes confidence. Another misunderstanding explored in this chapter is the idea of the obedient child. Parents often dream of a child who follows directions instantly and peacefully. But a child who constantly obeys may be a child who has disconnected from their sense of self. They have learned that love or approval is granted only when they submit. On the surface, the child seems easy. Inside, the price is high, self-abandonment. A child who dares to disagree is emotionally healthy. A child who cannot disagree is emotionally at risk. Autonomy does not mean letting children do whatever they want. It means giving them space to choose within clear boundaries. We can protect safety without violating dignity. We can guide without overpowering. We can lead without controlling. Instead of, you have to wear this, we might say, you can choose between these two. Instead of, do it now, we might say, when you're ready, we can begin. These shifts give power back to the child, and cooperation emerges not from fear, but from willingness. Children do not learn responsibility by being controlled. They learn responsibility by being given responsibility. Spilled milk teaches more than any lecture. Struggling with a zipper teaches more than being quickly helped. Every time we jump in to hurry things along, to make it easier, we rob them of an opportunity to experience their own competence. To raise an autonomous child, we as parents must face our biggest fear, letting go of control. Control feels efficient. It's faster to tie their shoes for them, faster to choose their outfit, faster to tell them what to do. But what we save in time, we lose in growth. What we save in convenience, we lose in confidence. One day, that child will leave our arms and step into the world. Will they know how to listen to themselves? Will they know how to act from inner authority? Or will they look outside for approval, direction, permission? The inner power a child embraces today becomes the self-trust they will carry into adulthood. Autonomy says, I believe in your capacity. And every time we show faith in that capacity, the child silently learns to believe in themselves. Chapter 6. Self-Confidence. Self-confidence is not something we can give to a child through praise, rewards, or encouragement. True confidence comes from a deeper source, an inner knowing that I am capable, I am enough, and I can trust myself. In this chapter, I explore how easily we as parents confuse confidence with performance. We think confidence grows when children succeed, achieve, or are frequently praised. But real confidence grows when children are allowed to experience themselves, their thoughts, their choices, their mistakes, and their ability to recover. A child who is praised constantly learns to perform. A child who is trusted learns to believe in themselves. Praise often sounds like love, but beneath it lies a subtle message. I approve of you because of what you did. Over time, the child becomes dependent on that approval. They start to measure their worth through the reactions of others, teachers, parents, peers. They learn to look outward instead of inward. Instead of feeling pride, they start seeking validation. Instead of exploring, they start performing. Self-confidence cannot grow in the shadow of judgment, even positive judgment. Confidence grows when a child experiences ownership of their actions. When they struggle through a task and succeed, not because someone directed them, praised them, or rewarded them, but because they trusted themselves enough to try. We often rush to praise. Good job. You're so smart. I am proud of you. But what a child truly needs to feel is, I'm proud of myself. One of the most damaging patterns in parenting is rescuing children from struggle. We tie their shoes so they don't take too long. We fix their mistakes because it's more efficient. We take over the task because we want to avoid frustration. But frustration is not failure. It is the birthplace of growth. When we step in too soon, we rob the child of the chance to discover that they can. A child becomes confident not by succeeding, but by surviving discomfort. Confidence is born the moment a child thinks, I did it myself. In this chapter, I met many children who appeared confident to the outside world, polite, successful, hardworking. Yet beneath the surface, they were anxious, terrified of making mistakes, terrified of disappointing the adults around them. They weren't confident, they were scared. They had been praised so much that their identity became tied to achievement. These children often avoid challenges not because they are lazy, but because they cannot bear the thought of losing approval. Perfectionism is the shadow of conditional praise. Another pattern that blocks confidence is comparison, even subtle comparison. Your sister did it faster. Why can't you behave like your cousin? You're the smart one in the family. Labels, even positive ones, become prisons. The smart one becomes terrified of mistakes. The shy one stops trying. The good child loses their voice. Confidence withers under comparison. Confidence flourishes under acceptance. The child does not need praise. The child needs presence. When we describe what we see instead of judging it, we shift from evaluation to connection. You worked so hard on that puzzle. You didn't give up. You kept trying even when it was difficult. The child no longer focuses on pleasing us. They start to feel proud of themselves. Confidence also depends on emotional safety. A child who is allowed to feel disappointment, anger, embarrassment, or frustration learns that feelings are not dangerous. They learn resilience. They learn that mistakes don't remove love or connection. And when a child knows they are loved even at their lowest moments, they no longer fear failure. They start trying to be perfect and start daring to be real. A child who believes I am loved no matter what becomes a confident human being. Confidence is not loud. Confidence is not performative. Confidence is quiet inner strength, the ability to trust oneself. To nurture confidence, we must release our attachment to outcomes. We must let children explore without evaluating, try without correcting, struggle without rescuing. We guide, but we don't take over. We support, but we don't decide. We believe in their ability until they can believe in it themselves. A child becomes confident not when we admire them, but when they admire themselves. And so I end this chapter with a reminder to every parent. Your child does not need you to build confidence for them. Your child needs you to get out of the way enough for them to build it themselves. Trust the process. Trust the child. Trust the unfolding. Because when a child is allowed to trust their inner voice, they carry that voice into adulthood. And no praise in the world could be more powerful than that.